Hello everybody! Today I'm going to be taking you on a little bit of an adventure with me. I had spent about a week with a pretty bad cold, so I was working from home, I wasn't really going out. By the weekend I had felt better, but I definitely needed to get out of my apartment and actually do something.
Hello. So I spent most of the last few days having just a super bad cold. Not COVID, but I'm finally feeling good enough to actually leave my apartment today. So in order to still be a distance from people, I'll be wearing a mask of course. I feel like today's a great day to go to an antique mall and just look at stuff at my own pace. Kind of bummed I lost my AirPods, so I can't super zone out and disconnect from other people, but I still thought it would be a fun time, and I have some dolls that I'm looking for. I'm on the hunt for. So I'm going to an antique mall that I know has had dolls in the past. So I'm hoping I can find some of the ones I'm looking for. They're definitely not the most popular. They're not Barbies. We'll see, but I figured it would be good to get out, get to see some cool stuff, maybe get some more mugs. I've broken a lot of mugs this year. Weird vibes. That's the planned adventure for today.
Hidden away above a Burlington coat factory in Edmonds, Washington, is Aurora Antique Pavilion. An unassuming set of stairs leads you to an antique mall full of wonders, from historic to slightly horrifying. So you might be asking, what is an antique mall? I only learned pretty recently that these aren't a universal experience. One of my favorite high school hangouts was an antique mall, so I spent a good time at them, but not everybody's gone to them or know what they are. Basically, antique malls tend to be the strangest building you have ever seen, filled with 50 small antique stores. They always seem to be in these odd buildings that have mysterious stairways or have been really oddly repurposed. There's 17 different wall colors at least, and 14 different types of carpet in there. So the malls are split up into booths, which are basically a chunk of space. Sometimes they have walls dividing them, sometimes they don't, and each of those booths is owned by an individual that is selling goods. All of the items in their booth will be marked with their specific booth number. So as you go around shopping, you can pick up whatever you want from any of the booths, and then you take it all to a main register. At the register, you'll buy everything together, and then the antique mall staff divide up the profits between the different booths based off of course, what you bought from them. And then I think it usually costs a specific amount to rent a booth, or they might also take a percentage of the profits as well. I don't know too much about the business side of things. Basically, it is a bunch of shops all in one. They tend to be very packed with a ton of different stuff, and there's a really wide variety in what you can find there. These are pretty well some of my favorite places to go, just because there can be so much variety. Each booth tends to have its own theme, but you get a pretty wide range of stuff overall. I think typically the time range that I see is from 1900s to 2000. You have your antique classics, home goods, textiles, clothes, collectibles, and items that were absolutely once someone's collection. But then you also get some more modern items, both of my middle school crushes were represented here. But of course, I'm here for the dolls. If you don't already know this about me, I am a bit of a doll collector and dipping my toes into becoming a bit of a doll historian. There are some doll lines that I'm just really fascinated by, if you haven't already seen my Taylor Swift doll line video. So I've been looking for some pretty specific dolls, and this antique store was the one that when I had come in the past had a booth that was selling a really wide variety of dolls, including some non-Barbie ones, and I wanted to see if they had any of the dolls that I've been interested in researching. I got really good vibes right when I entered because one of the first things I saw was this Barbie lunchbox, so I was like, yes, good doll energy. But in reality, only about 1 in 5 booths would have a doll, and it would usually be just a single Barbie. But while I was on my hunt for the dolls, there were a couple of other things that I decided to keep an eye out for my home, partially to help keep my spirits up in the slightly depressing at times hunt for these very specific dolls that I'm looking for. One of the first things that I actually see quite often are Coca-Cola trays. These are serving trays, many of which were made by Coke, that feature Coca-Cola branding. I love them. There's a pretty wide variety of different ones that exist, but most of them have essentially a beautiful woman drinking Coca-Cola. And I've always wanted one of these for my living room as a little tray on my coffee table. Like I said, these do show up in antique malls a fair amount, and they range a lot in price as well as style and condition. And because I was finding such a wide range, I was ended up doing some Googling about it, and turns out, of course, there are reproductions. So I don't want to pay non-reproduction prices for a reproduction piece. And I also want to get a piece that I can, of course, use, but also like fits the aesthetic of my home and is something that I actually wanted. I didn't end up picking up anything there, but I do always like looking at them and kind of checking out the different ones that exist. I honestly don't mind totally if I were to get a fake one. I in fact think, so you know how there was a trend where women would make like beer posters of themselves for their boyfriend? I want someone to do that for me with like the Coca-Cola tray. Like I want my significant other to make themselves into a Coca-Cola tray for me. I would love that. I also learned a lot about like Coca-Cola collectors in general, which is like a fascinating little corner of the world. I just really enjoy, I gotta say, discovering other people that have like their collectibles that they love. Something about just how passionate people are. It just makes me really happy. I also came across this amazing set of salt and pepper shakers. There were so many different ones. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, of course I'll have to like pick one and take one home. But there were just too many options that I enjoyed. And another thing that I saw that was slightly heartbreaking at the time is I really want a Formica table for my kitchen, like a diner style table. I've been searching for these for a while and I am unfortunately very picky. So I want a yellow one that is rectangular, and I almost found the perfect one. They had a green one here that was the exact style I wanted, but I just really wanted a yellow one. So I was bummed out. They had a couple of different colors and styles in this one booth, and it was like so close to being perfect. It was also a little more expensive than what I wanted to pay though. Furniture at antique malls tends to be a lot more than I would be willing to pay. One day I'll get one of those tables and it'll be really great. But it is time to get into the specifics of the dolls. So like I said before, a lot of the booths did have dolls, just not a lot of them, or they would be not ones that I really would want to own. I'm not like a baby doll collector or a porcelain doll collector. I much prefer like non-art dolls. A lot of the Barbies that were there as well tended to be on the much more expensive side than I would like to pay. Like there was a mermaid Barbie that I really love. And right now I'm trying to only look for really specific Barbie dolls. I'm trying not to just like hoard a bunch of them. So while they're really fun for me to look at, they just weren't for me at that time. Also in general, there were a lot of Barbie trunks, which are always fun to see. I own a couple of these. I really love the art style on these, but there was also this Barbie plane, which I just adored. Something about like these vinyl play sets just had so many nice little intricate details without it, I'm assuming, being too complicated to produce. Like you don't have to make plastic pieces or anything, you can just print it on. I feel like that still works well for play. I don't know. I just really like it. I was very enamored by it. As I approached the booth that I knew had dolls, I found this other set of dolls that I was like really enchanted by. Like I said earlier, I'm not super interested in collecting art style dolls or really anything made before the 80s at this point, but I just really love these. These are called Bradley dolls, and they were originally made by Bradley Import Company in Japan from the 50s to the 80s. Other companies have made similar dolls. I think Bradley doll tends to be kind of a catch-all term for these large-eyed, big head girls. I just love them though. There's something about them that is like delightful to me. The big hair, the big dresses, their eyes, they look a little bit mysterious. They wear a vast number of different styles. Like most of the ones I saw were these elegant ball gowns. I did find one wearing a kimono, which was really beautiful. And there are also some mod style ones, which that's another kind of fashion time period that I really adore. So these also aren't very expensive dolls. Most of the other ones were like $15. So I'm definitely considering, if I figure out like a good spot to have one, getting one, because they're just really beautiful dolls, and again, not expensive and enchanting. They're like enchanting ladies. I love them. And every time I'm online Googling it, different ones pop up. So I feel like there are 50 billion styles of these. So keep an eye out for Bradley dolls. And if you have Bradley dolls, let me know about the ones that you have. And so then I finally got to the doll booth, the booth that I knew had a lot of dolls, and I was kind of disappointed. Last time I was there, they had a bit more variety with the dolls that they had, and that they had more than just Barbies, but this time it was mostly Barbies, but that's kind of understandable. Again, she kind of is like the most produced babe on the market. They did have a bit of an interesting mix of Barbies though, including the first doll that I ever got as a kid, which was this Generation Girl Barbie, which funnily enough came with a camera. So I think it's really interesting that I now do video stuff so much. It's kind of like my parents like selected my destiny for me via getting me that Barbie. My sister got the sporty Barbie, and she always was the sporty sister. So again, I just feel like my parents selected our journeys in life. They also had some of the dolls from the Barbies of the World collection, which was from the 80s, which was a series of dolls where each of them was based off of a different country. I think that these are cool. I don't know how culturally accurate they are, but I will say I do own, she's back there, the Canadian Mountie Barbie from this line, because as a Canadian and a Barbie collector, how could I not? I swear though also, sometimes Barbie doll names feel like they put an adjective and then a noun in hats and they just pick them at random. It's like, what is the history of the Royal Enchantment Barbie? Like, what makes her a royal enchantment? These Stars on Ice dolls, though, were kind of interesting. They were made by the band Playmates as a tie-in product for a ice skating tour, which featured different star figure skaters. And in general as well, I did find a lot of like celebrity dolls. Sadly, none of which that I was interested in collecting, but I do think it's really fascinating to see how different companies try and make dolls of real people. As I've talked about a little bit in my Taylor Swift video, it definitely has a challenge to it, and it's really interesting to see how they try to capture the likeness of real people, because it can be very hard. This antique mall also has an atrium, which I thought was really funny. Again, these buildings are always in like the strangest buildings, and they're so quirky, but they're so fun to explore. At the end of my time there, I was coming to terms with my lack of doll finds and appreciated a poster which really felt like it belonged in a Nancy Drew game as a way to teach you about knots for a puzzle.
My hair is just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger, and my eyeliner is just gonna keep melting off. It seems in the world of doll collecting, like it's just Barbie for the time period that I'm looking for. I'm gonna Google around and see if there's any more locations that seem worth going to around here. If so, I might try. Again, it's just hard to find places that are gonna have what you want, because antique malls they're so hit or miss with what they have in them. So I'll see what I can find, and if I feel up to it, and we might continue.
I didn't realize that I was leaving Seattle until I was already in the countryside. The Star Center Antique Mall is in Snohomish, Washington, which I would say is like 30-40 minutes out from the city, but it really does feel like a completely different world from Seattle. The reason I chose this place is mostly because I saw a lot of reviews saying that it was really big. One of the reviews even saying that there was too much stuff, which is exactly what I look for when it comes to an antique mall. Like, I want to see all of the things. Show me, I want to be overwhelmed with things. That is what I want when I go in these spaces. This mall also had a lot more clothing than I'm used to finding. Antique malls can be really hit or miss on this. I find most of them don't have a lot of clothing just because having separate, thrift stores or stores specifically for vintage clothing are so much more common. So antique malls tend to lean away from that. But this one did have a lot, which is always fun to look through. Nothing in my size or style, but always pieces that I love to appreciate. I also did find this robot baby, which was kind of terrifying, but then also reminded me a lot of this sad baby couple doll I found at the other mall. Like, why are they so sad? What are these sad babies doing in our world? What are we doing to them? But there was also this robot cat to go with the robot baby, just some robot friends. This building was 4 stories and was really delightful to explore through. Also, okay, I found these Mickey Mouse phones, and I just have to say, I see these everywhere. I don't know what they're usually valued at or if they're considered rare, but I just want to let you know, anyone watching, I see these phones at like every mall I go to. I've seen them at a lot of estate sales. I see them online all the time. I don't think they are rare, so if anyone's like, this is super rare, spit in their face. I don't know, like, no, they're not. I see them all the time. They are cute though, so I don't mind seeing them. Another thing I found, which was kind of funny to me, is this specific issue of Playboy, which most of you will be like, Mary, that's kind of weird. but I actually own this issue now because ironically, I needed to look at an article and I got it for the articles. That will make sense in a couple more weeks. I swear there's some context to that. There's a related video, but it was really funny to find that exact issue in the store. While I was able to find like a few Barbies and some doll clothing here, there wasn't a lot that like I was specifically looking for. And I do think it's really interesting that the availability of like boy toys at this location versus girl toys is really like disproportionate. I always find a lot more toys that, you know, as general audience would have been boys. So Hot Wheels, Star Trek figures, Star Wars figures, G.I. Joes. I found that those tend to be a lot more common both at antique malls as well as at like toy fairs, or at least the toy fairs that I've been to. So I'm just really curious about like the demographics when it comes to toy collectors, because, and I even find this online as well, doll collectors seem like they're their own subset, their own culture. I just think it's really interesting that there are all these toys that were, you know, made for boys that obviously have been collected and kept in package, and I feel like there must have been someone also collecting these girls' toys. I guess, I don't know. I'm really curious about like some statistics on who collects what and why, and are there like social expectations and gender roles involved? Like, do women feel like they can't collect stuff? Do they feel like they have to grow up faster and thus collecting toys is wrong? Like, I don't know. If you're a woman and you felt that way, let me know.
So that place did not have a lot of stuff in general, a lot of dolls, huge space, still was cool to check through, but I'm so sweaty, oh my god. There is another antique mall like a block away, so I'm gonna walk over there and check that one out.
And as it turns out, there are actually so many antique stores in downtown Snohomish. So if you live in Washington and you want to go antiquing, absolutely go there. There were like 3 antique malls, a bunch of different just shops. It was kind of wild. So I ended up checking out a few other ones. I went to a clothing specific one, a furniture specific one, as well as a couple of other malls themselves. And again, I had pretty similar results, very much minimum dolls. I did find this really cute like DIY cat plushie and even some wallpaper, which is very rare to actually find at these stores. I'm always keeping an eye out for vintage wallpaper. That's the wallpaper I want to get to use in my apartment because I just love some of the prints on it, and if I can get it for a good price, that's even better because wallpaper is really expensive. I did find these Barbie books, which I was thinking I could use the artwork in them for some fun project, but it just wasn't quite what I wanted. But then I did find some other dolls. This was kind of exciting. There was a bookshelf full of them, and they had one of these mermaid Barbies. However, she's $75 and she's not on my list that I want to collect, so I was like, okay, maybe let's not do that to my wallet right now. I did almost get this locket supply Barbie though, just because like she is a locket and I love gimmicks. I love gimmicky toys, and I thought, you know, she's just really fun. You can have a picture of Ken in her or your blush, so you can reapply your blush anytime you need with your doll. I love it. I think I have a really terrible habit of buying things because I think they're funny and gimmicky, so this sort of thing was like made for me in the worst way possible, so I did not buy her, but I really wanted to. I then just went on like a really lovely walk of the downtown area itself because it's so cute. They got all these cute shops. There was some sort of like wine drinking event going on, tasting, so there were a ton of other people out. It was still pretty easy to be like socially distanced. I got a banana cream pie ice cream, which was so delightful, so I just got to like eat my ice cream and walk down and outside the street, and it was so sunny out. So I ended up spending like my entire day looking at antique stores, which definitely wasn't how I was planning on spending my day, but ended up being a really nice time. And I do highly recommend any of you check out antique malls, especially if you're a collector or just like want to look at what existed in the past or what people held on to or what other people were collecting. I think they're really neat time capsules, and I feel really lucky that I have so many near me and accessible to me. The other thing I was thinking is maybe I'm seeing less dolls and less Barbies than I would otherwise because of the Barbie movie. I have a feeling a lot of people might be buying the Barbies from their childhood and stuff like that, which I think is really sweet. So I kind of almost hope that that's the case because I would love for more people to get to reconnect with their childhood. And that was going to be the end of my solo adventure, but I do have a little bit more to tell you about. So So something kind of similar, a similar vein, is an estate sale. I love estate sales. I don't go to them too often. I'm more of an online estate sale girly, but what an estate sale is essentially is when someone passes away or is moving or maybe just has too much stuff in their life and needs to get rid of it. They'll contact a company usually and they will hold a sale. Often they're held at the person's house, and so it's a way of making sure that the products that they owned, if they're not wanted by anyone in the family, end up going to people that, you know, will either resell them or turn them into something new, or will of course enjoy them for themselves, which is why I like to go to estate sales. I love to find little things that I can give a home to and give lots of love to. And so, remember when I was like, I really want that yellow Formica table? The night after this day, I was on my phone, I was looking at estatesales.net, which is where I go to find all of my estate sales. It's basically like a general listing for ones in the US. And I saw a listing for a sale that had 2 yellow Formica tables at it. My time to shine. Looking at the photos as well, they were pretty much exactly what I had wanted, so I was really excited. So yesterday, I woke up at 5:50 in the morning to drive about 20 minutes south of my apartment to go to this estate sale. So how estate sales work as well is typically there'll be a specific time period that they're running. Usually they're over the weekend, sometimes on Friday, sometimes on different days. And usually they'll have a starting time of like 9 or 10 a.m. But before that, of course, people want to get in line if there's things that they really want. The most typical way of handling this is they'll make a list on the door and you just sign your name, and then people are let in based off of their list. Now, I've heard all sorts of drama related to these lists. I've not experienced any of it myself. I've only had positive list experiences. So again, I woke up at 5:50 for this sale. They posted the address at 6 in the morning, and the sale was supposed to start at 9 in the morning. And so I got there to the address at like 6:20, and I was 33rd on the list. So many people were coming to the sale, so of course I was freaking out. It was in general a cool sale that had like a ton of cute plus size vintage clothing, which is very rare when it comes to vintage clothing. If you don't know already, plus size is not common, and really colorful clothing too, which is like extra not common when it comes to plus size vintage. I was really nervous. I was like, shoot, everyone is gonna be here for this table that I really want, that I've been searching for like months and months. And I was feeling really bummed, but I was like, hey, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna have a good time anyways, just because I think looking around at estate sales is so fascinating. And I actually ended up having a really great time waiting for the sale to start. Like, I went and got a coffee after I signed up, and I just like chilled in my car for a while. But eventually around like an hour and a half before the sale started, there were some people hanging out outside the house. So I went up and talked to them, and I had like genuinely such a pleasant time talking to them. It was a group of women, all of which were like incredibly respectful and loving towards vintage fashion and vintage clothing, and was basically the best group of people I could have spent that time with, because it's always such a wide range of, you know, genres of people that are drawn to these sales. Some people really want to make money off of reselling. Some people are, you know, looking for really specific items, but just getting to be around other people that had so much respect and love for the person whose house that we were in and the items that they wanted. It was just really, really nice. The sale started, and again, they let people in by number on the list, so I had to wait about 40 minutes after the sale started to actually get in. I beelined it to the kitchen, and the table hadn't been sold yet, and came with a set of 4 chairs. So I am now the very happy owner of a yellow Formica table with 4 chairs that match. I cannot, like, I was so overjoyed. I got such an adrenaline rush that I couldn't think. I recorded so little, vlogged so little of this, because my brain was in another world. I was so excited about getting this table. So I got a staff member to come over, and they write on a piece of tape sold to, claim it, and nobody else is gonna try and buy it. And then it gets even more exciting for me because I kind of love vintage Avon products. I've never used an Avon beauty product in my life, but I have this strong adoration for vintage Avon that had this really cool packaging. And this lady had been an Avon seller. So she had boxes and boxes and boxes of Avon products, and I just like sat on the floor digging through it, deciding what I wanted. So I actually got a number of different Avon products. I'll put a link to my haul of those in the description if you want to see what I got. But yeah, it was just a delightful time. So I got some cute home decor stuff via Avon. I got the table, which is in my kitchen right now, and I'm just like, I want to cry. I'm so happy. I had to add this into the end of this video. Again, I loved the experience of getting to go on my own and look through all of these trinkets and take my time with the antique malls. But then I also loved, of course, the experience of getting to meet all of these like passionate, creative women who love antiquing and love estate sales and love giving new life to things. I really love doing this kind of like solo adventure vlogging series because I think it just teaches me again and again the joy that I can get out of not only experiencing things on my own and going new places that I've never been before, but then also there's a whole element of like connecting with other people that have similar interests that is just such a joy. So thank you all for coming on this solo adventure with me. I hope it inspires you to check out an estate sale, go to an antique mall, or just love something that isn't brand new. Let's reduce, reuse, recycle, all of that. Give something old a home. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.